Hello and welcome to the 14th video in this series, making a space shooter using HTML and JavaScript. In this video we're going to make the player actually flash when it gets hit by an enemy. The last video we had the player fading and just becoming opaque for a little bit, or slightly transparent, sorry, for a little bit. This time we're going to make the player actually flash so it looks a little bit better. To do this, the first place I'm going to go is in defs.js and set a couple of constants in there. So in the game settings we have the player flash opacity. I'm going to set here the flash time, so each flash will be 300 milliseconds and there'll be 8 of those flashes in total. And we'll use these then in the logic inside our player.js. So going into player.js then, I'm going to remove this last hit property that was just there temporarily for the last video. We're going to do things slightly differently. So I'm going to add in 2 more properties, one of them called last flash and the other one called num flashes, and also in the reset I'll set those to 0 as well. So we have last flash and num flashes, and num flashes will be used to count the amount of flashes we've made, and we'll keep going up to the player flashes number here, and last flash as ever will keep the amount of time that's elapsed since the last flash that we did. What remains then is for us to change slightly the logic that we've got inside the update here. The first thing we'll do is if the player's been hit, then we're going to set the number of flashes and last flash to 0 and remove this last hit from here. We'll leave the log to the console that the player's been hit, and of course we leave everything else. Now we're going to have to change the update here quite a bit in the hit flashing, just to make the logic to flash on and off. The first thing I'll do is I'll change this last hit to last flash and increment that by plus or minus delta time. And now what I'm going to ask is if our last flash is greater than the game settings player flash time, so that's our 300 milliseconds, then we'll set the last flash to 0 and increment the number of flashes. I'll remove this last hit here. And now I'll add in some slightly different logic. So I'm going to say if the number of flashes is equal to the player flashes in game settings, so 8, then we've finished flashing now. So we can show our div. Our hit can be set back to false, and we have to set the opacity back to 1.0. Otherwise, we want to maybe flash, and that will mean we'll keep our opacity at 0.5, but we'll either hide or show our div depending on which flash we are on. And we'll do this using the modulo operator. So if you're not familiar with a modulo operator, basically it's like dividing and then the result of the division, the remainder of the division is the result of the operation. So I'm saying if we divide by 2 and the remainder, num flashes by 2 and the remainder is 1, then we'll hide the div, otherwise we'll show. And this will have the effect of making our player flash on and off. So to review the logic from the top, we increment the last flash, and if it's above our flash time, then we'll set that to 0, increment the number of flashes. Assuming we've not done all 8, then we'll look in here and see whether we need to hide or show our div. Everything else is reset to 0, we keep updating, last flash increases, and say we've hidden the div. Then if it's above the time, we increment num flashes. This will cause this operator to switch, so we'll either hide or show. And we'll keep flashing on and off every 300 milliseconds until we've done our 8 flashes. Then we'll be okay, we'll show our div, our hit will be false, and we'll set our opacity back to 1.0 so we're there in full colour on the screen. So the last thing to do is check that out in the browser that it's all working. And you can see now that the player starts flashing, and then I'm back to normal, and I'm hit, and I'm flashing again, and now I'm back to normal. Good, so that was decidedly shorter than some of the previous videos, but that's actually it for this video. We've now got the player flashing and it looks a lot better than it does just going 0.5 opacity, going a bit transparent. The flashing looks a lot better, I think, and obvious when the player has been hit. So thanks very much for watching. Comments, questions welcome as always on YouTube, and see you in the next one.